Everybody, good evening. I'm going to call our regular meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Can all start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you guys want to hit mute and rise for the pledge. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Sonia, we are going to head into executive session, which I think we explained to you that you don't have to attend. And the executive session is scheduled at this point to be about 30 minutes long, and I imagine it will only take that long. So whenever this sort of thing happens, you log out of the meeting, and then you can log back in, and I'll just keep you in the waiting room until it's time to come back in, but you can expect us around 6:30 to open the regular session back up.
Cool, and Dan will also be joining us then too.
Awesome, so he can just be in the waiting room with you, that's
okay.
Fine.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, so for everyone else, we're going to head into executive session, and I think Mike has a motion for us.
I do. I move to go into executive session at 6:01 p.m. pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Unit A, Unit C, executive session to include the school committee and Superintendent Downing. School committee member Brett Collins will be excused from the executive session due to a conflict of interest. School committee will return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I do declare that discussion of strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body with the Unit A and Unit C. So any other discussion? No. We will take a vote or a roll vote to go into executive session. So Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yeah.
And Mike?
Yes, and as a reminder, Brett cannot attend due to a conflict of interest.
Indeed. So Brett, we'll see you around 6:30. Our regular session. And we have one citizen's comment this evening, and that is Keely Nowasaki. Please take it away.
Hello. So I came into some information recently. I belong to a group of other individuals with kind of a take on things that I do. So some of the information. By now, everyone here has two things in common, and I think that's that we have a position on the COVID pandemic. And then that second piece is specific choices that you have made in your life as a result of that position. I return to these meetings because I'm interested and I worry about my son's future in education. Your decisions as the school committee directly affect my child. There should be a basic trust between the parents and guardians of children in our community. My question is, why then are our rights being actively, intentionally subverted by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education? Why are we willing to let that happen is my question. The positions and choices that the school committee has made for our community during the pandemic has frequently included the adherence to guidance set forth by the CDC, our Board of Health, and DESE. Is this about money is what my question is. When it comes to funding, DESE has several programs, and I've come into knowledge that one of their programs is a primary source of that, and that is Chapter 70. This is in large part determines that the number of children enrolled in schools within a given district, and that Chapter 70 relates how much money a school district gets. So DESE uses a model linked to in-person learning hours versus a per head basis. So those hours allow teachers to properly cover the part of the curriculum that they need to. DESE is supposed to work with towns, so we should be hearing from them. My question is, has DESE or any entity that provides the school district with funding sent the district notice that non-compliance with their public health guidance will directly translate to lost funding? If yes, who is this and how much money? How do they enforce their guidance? What I found out is that DESE is prepared to only count in-person learning hours by a total towards a different count. One are vaccinated students, and two are unvaccinated and masked students. So if I know this information, I assume that you also know this information because you guys are dealing with the funding and you know what Chapter 70 is. So why do we continue to vote unanimously for these constraints on our children? Again, is it because funding for our school system? If it's that, we should say that outright. Why are we contributing to a policy that wants to identify and publicly shame faculty, staff, students, and families simply for what they believe in and the decisions that they make? Why are we okay with taking away the rights of choices of parents over the bodily autonomy of their child? DESE has never told us when the mask would go away. They've given us dates. The goalposts have been moved, and it's clear that this will only end when they say so or all have been vaccinated. In doing so, you are no longer safeguarding the choices of families in this community. And I choose to believe in this community. I choose to believe in Stow. I choose to believe in this school system, but I still believe that where there is risk, there must be choice. And if this is about funding, I really believe that the community needs to know about it. And that's just something that I came across, and it worries me that if this is based on funding, obviously they have a stronghold on our school system. So if you want to comment on that, that would be great, or in an email or whatever, but I'm curious to what is going to happen with that funding versus Chapter 70, and if that head count is really based on two different statuses, vaccinated and unvaccinated with a mask, because their guidance right now doesn't include anything without a mask. That is all. Thank you.
Thanks for giving us your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So just by policy, Keely, citizens' comment is not something that we respond to necessarily, so you probably won't have a response right now, but you can email us and we can continue the conversation that way. And I know that this is fodder for a future agenda.
Okay, sounds good. I will email. Thank you.
See you later. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to our consent agenda. And I believe that Mr. Horesh has a motion for us. You're muted, Mike. Sorry.
It's not as if that's happened all day. It has happened all day. Move to approve the consent agenda of November 17th, 2021, containing the meeting minutes of November 3rd, 2021, and the warrants of November 19th, 2021.
Have a second.
I'll second it.
Oh, I beat you to it, Mary. So I second.
Okay.
Do we have any? Thank you, though. Do we have any debate or discussion? Yeah, Mike.
Okay, I want to preface this by saying, Mr. Gleason, you are taking notes, correct?
Mr. Gleason is not taking notes. This is Ms. Masterson's time to take notes. I took notes in the executive session.
No, for the meeting minutes.
No, I take it, Mike.
Oh, I apologize. I just want to let you know that these minutes are so extensive. I found a handful of minor errors, no judgment, outstanding job, but just I've been analyzing standardized test questions all day, so that's where my head is at.
Are they just grammatical and punctuation?
Yeah, sort of missing words here and there. It's up to you. I mean, we can go through it or we don't have to.
That's up to Leah. Either you can email them to me or we can go through them.
Do any of the changes change the substance of the minutes?
I don't think so. Maybe we misspelled the Director of People Personnel Services to Personal Services. I don't know if that makes a difference. That might be the only one. Those would be on pages 1 and 2.
All right, so Mike, you can send to Alita those couple of things, and then we can accept the motion or add to the motion those small little grammatical changes without objection from anyone else.
So it's the minutes as amended.
Thank you. So the minutes as amended,
No, corrected.
corrected. And I seconded the motion. And so the maker of the motion, Mike, are you okay with this?
Yep.
And I am okay with this. Is there any further discussion? All right. So we're going to go around the circle and say yes or no. So Joe.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mary.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Ding. Brett.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Shawn.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
And Steve.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that
So
consent.
Mike, you'll send me those? Thank you.
All right, guys, the next matter of business is our superintendent's update. And so Kirk, I will turn it over to you.
Sure. The update tonight's going to be brief because we have some all-star principals that are here tonight to share their school improvement plans with you. So I want to make sure that they get the time to do that. So before I introduce them, I'll go over a few things in the update. Let me just find my screen here. Yes, a couple of things to bring the committee up to speed on is recently with the town of Bolton, we've signed a study agreement where solar energy through the company Select Energy, brought to me by Town Administrator Don Lowe, is going to investigate the leach field, which is just east of the playing fields at Florence Sawyer School, of installing a solar array. There's really no impact to the operations of the school system other than we would need to make sure that they would have easement to get to that area. But this has the potential of providing solar energy to the Florence Sawyer building as well as the Emerson building. And so this is an agreement that is non-binding, non-financial at this time. They're merely studying the possibilities. And we have investigated, yes, the solar array could be installed on top of a leach field, but part of what we need to investigate is in future years of service and work had to be done on that leach field. How would that impact the contract with the solar company? So those are the types of things that we're studying. But I thought I would bring you up to speed on that, as I know our town administrators are looking for what are some green energy solutions to providing power to our town buildings. The next piece to update you on is tomorrow at our leadership council meeting. We'll be reviewing with our district leaders the updated 51A mandated reporting guidelines produced by DESE just recently. Nothing has necessarily changed other than as an update to policies and procedures and ensuring that all of our staff members know that as educators and public officials, we are mandated reporters for suspicion of neglect or abuse, not investigation of neglect or abuse, but suspicion of. So we'll be reviewing that with our team tomorrow. And I wanted to make sure the committee was aware of that in our community, that this is part of our regular procedures. Normally we do this at the beginning of the year in our retreat, but because DESE did recently come out with some new guidance, we're going to do just a quick little update with our leaders so they can take that information back to the faculty. And then the last piece that I'm sharing with you today is going to be about the architecture selection process and feasibility timeline. But I have kindly asked Attorney Gleason if I may speak to that when we come to subcommittee updates later in the meeting. And I think he is graciously prepared to allow me to speak to that item at that time. So at this point, I will turn it over to Dr. McGuire for the teaching and learning update. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. McGuire. I scrolled down my page too fast. I did want to let the committee know that we are up and running with weekly COVID testing at Nashoba High School. We had our start last week. The team's been hired. Our coordinator is hiring additional people, and we hope to have our weekly COVID testing up and running at our other schools either in the first or second week back from our Thanksgiving break. So we're getting queued up and ready to go. Participation in the vaccination clinic was so robust last Friday that it looks like the slots in the Nashoba Board of Health had reserved filled up rather quickly. And so I've heard that the Walgreens and CVS's in the areas have also been very full as well. So those are great indicators that our community is excited about doing their part and helping us make sure people that want the vaccine can get it as quickly as possible for their kids. So with that, I will now turn it over to Dr. McGuire for the teaching and learning.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. A couple of things to report out from teaching and learning. We're continuing our work with piloting a variety of math programs this year. Our math department held last week an all-day professional development workshop for our K-5 math teachers last Wednesday, November 10th, to learn more about new curricular resources through the Bridges Mathematics program. This is a comprehensive pre-K-5 curriculum that equips teachers to fully address state standards in a rigorous, engaging, and accessible manner. Teachers participated in a morning webinar with Bridges Mathematics and then had an opportunity to work on unit planning together and review of the program in the afternoon in the central office. They also had some opportunities to offer feedback on the program's resources and ask relevant questions pertaining to the Bridges program. This was a beneficial day for our K-5 math teachers in our work exploring a variety of new math curricula as part of our curriculum review process this year in the teaching and learning department. And then as we continue to take a look at a variety of model school around the Commonwealth, on Monday, November 8th and on Tuesday, November 9th, 2 teams from Nashoba, which included stakeholders from our towns, our school building, school committee, and our school building committee, were able to visit the new Attleboro High School, which actually has not opened its doors yet. So I know a variety of our team members donned helmets and goggles and all of that good stuff to go through their work site. And then also Billerica Memorial High School, both buildings and designs were informative to our teams and allowed us to ask questions and continue our visioning process for our own Nashoba High School project. Participants on these visits will have the opportunity to offer feedback as well. We've crafted a survey from the teaching and learning department that goes out to all of our visitors to solicit feedback on their site visits. So we'll continue to reach out to our model schools and inform our community on our visits. And what I also did was link 2 of the virtual visits to each of those schools down below. They're worth taking a look at. They're a lot of fun to kind of go through in a virtual way. If you're unable, obviously, to visit an actual site, to take a look at the virtual site are some pretty great opportunities. And just to add, we've also solidified 2 more visits. And we'll be visiting 2 schools in the Natick Public Schools on Monday, December 6th. And we'll also be visiting the North Middlesex Regional High School on Friday, December 10th in the morning. And we've just solidified those 2. So anybody on the school committee, the school building committee, who's interested in attending one of these visits can contact me or the superintendent, and we'll continue our outreach through building principals with our school councils and our school buildings and communities as well. Thank you.
If I can follow up on Dr. McGuire and just put out to the committee and also to our community, the whole purpose behind these school visits, these are the inspirational moments for us. It's not necessarily to go for us to analyze the projects of other schools. It's actually to go find out what kind of creative ideas surfaced in other arenas and places and ask people questions about, gosh, I wonder how that idea or that learning space came to be. Because when we get into the feasibility visioning process, which I'll speak about later, that's just the kind of information that feeds creativity during that phase of the development.
Great. So let's open it up to any questions. And I see Karen's yellow hand.
Thank you. I just had a question about the weekly COVID testing, if we could bounce back to that for a minute. Yeah. So you mentioned, Park, that you are hiring, or the CIC health person is hiring additional staff.
Yep.
I'm just curious, is that additional staff going to support contact tracing, talking with families? They are not. So is that's going to be the responsibility of the nurses? primarily?
That's right. And as part of our ESSER funding, we mentioned earlier this year, is we hired an additional nurse this year specifically for that. And that particular nurse floats around the school system where the demand is highest for doing those types of things.
Okay, so I'm just curious what the role of the additional staff is. It the actual testing process, just getting the kids through the testing?
Yeah, Ms. Devine, it's volume. So to do other, so for instance, we know we do Tuesdays at Nashoba High School. Some of the people on that team can't work on Mondays and Wednesdays, so they need other people that can work on the other days that we beat the other schools.
The reason I'm asking is I know working in a district that does the weekly testing, when those positive cases come up, it is the shift for the nurses and the administrators to then cover all of that contact tracing and talking with families is just a huge, huge lift that can take an incredible amount of time. So I was just curious if CIC was supporting that piece, but it sounds like it's primarily the actual physical testing.
Yeah, they're just contracted for the weekly COVID testing itself. And you're absolutely right. We take over, if we find a positive case, we take over everything from there the way we have all year long.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Steve, did you have a question? You're muted, Steve.
I can see that. Superintendent Downing, I wonder if you could acquaint the full committee with the situation at the school in Lancaster, the fact that we now have a boiler or generators in back of the school. Just let us know what's going on there.
Mr. Rubinstein, I can add that to my next update because I didn't include it on my agenda this week. I don't think I would be in compliance if I spoke to that item.
Okay.
But I'm happy to provide that information.
Thanks, Kirk. Any other questions on the superintendent's update? So it looks like we're going to move on to our next matter on the agenda, and that is new business. And our star-studded cast here has increased to include our school principals. And so, Kirk, this is yours as well. We look forward to hearing about the school improvement plans.
Yes, thank you very much. As we are prepared to hear from our principals, I hearken back to Dr. McCarthy's presentation about what our goal is to ultimately have all of our plans aligned to a strategic plan that builds off of school committee goals, superintendent goals, school goals, principal goals, teacher goals that go ultimately down into the classroom. And so we're setting the stage for that as a team. And so we did some work this summer in terms of how we can align our plans in that way. But we also know that right now, coming out of hybrid and remote learning and where we were in our school improvement plans and the rollover of the district improvement plan 1 year, we made an agreement of forwarding goals from the previous year to this year with, if you have the need to add an additional goal into that, you certainly could do that. So we're setting the stage for the future, knowing that we needed to tie up some of the elements of the past at the same time. And I think that's the spirit of what our principals are bringing here tonight. So I want to introduce to you Laura Friend, who is our principal at Luther Burbank in Lancaster, Kyle Grady, principal of Hale Middle School in Stow, and Joel Bates, principal of our K-8 school, Florence, Sawyer, and Bolton. We have outstanding principals, and I want to thank you all, you three, for coming tonight and sharing with us your some quick comments to your plans. And whoever needs, should we put the PowerPoint up for you, or do you want to drive yourself?
So I think I'm starting us off. Alita, do you have those slides to put up?
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Bates.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you tonight and to share the work of our school councils. I'm sure I speak for both Principal Grady and Principal Friend that we are grateful for the partnership that we have with our school councils and by extension our community in this work. We simply can't do this work in isolation. If you can move to the next slide. what we're going to do tonight, as Superintendent Downing said, is give you a brief look at the past and an idea of where we're heading as a school district with regard to our schools and the development of our school improvement plans. I also want to take an opportunity to thank both Dr. McCarthy and Mr. Horesh and Ms. Cohen, as they have been school council members and their DNA is all over the Florence Sawyer plan, and we are grateful for that work as well. As Superintendent Downing said, we have sort of extended the life of our plans. Some of the projects, some of the goals had some impact from the pandemic in terms of where we were and what we were focusing our energy and resources on. We have continued to meet as school councils across all three of our schools and across all the schools in the district. They are, with the pandemic, we've taken advantage of all of the technology that we have and the lessons that we've learned with regard to being able to host virtual meetings so that that work can continue, and we continue to meet monthly. The school improvement plan process, as you're well aware, is at its best a comprehensive, collaborative effort involving stakeholders within the school. And so our school councils are representative of our staff members, our community members, our administration, and our faculty. As Superintendent Downing said, we're excited about the opportunity to continue the collaboration that you've seen from us, certainly with regard to the 3 middle schools, the 3 elementary schools, in moving in step with the work that the district is doing. And to that end, part of the reason to extend these school improvement plans is to line them up so that we are taking into account the work that we're doing around Portrait of a Graduate, so that we take into account the strategic planning at the district level, so that there is a through line for all of our work together as stakeholders. And I think what we'll do from now, we'll go into, I believe the next slide is Mr. Grady's for Hale Middle School, to give you an overview of each of the school's plans, the goals, and a brief overview of some of the outcomes that we've had thus far. So, Mr. Grady.
Thanks, Principal Bates. And thank you for having us here tonight. It's always a pleasure to come before this group of volunteers, and it's oftentimes a thankless job. So thank you for the work that you guys are doing to continue to make this district as great as it is. I'm not going to go through and read each goal. I believe you've been provided copies of those. I'm just going to give you a quick overview. There are some direct outcomes on the right and the school improvement goals on the left. The first one, for your understanding, is kind of it is a digital literacy goal. We've made significant steps towards achieving this goal, and this is including but not limited to introduction of new curriculum, after school programming, and continual improvement of our classroom technology, and that includes student technology as well. That second goal is really our teaching and learning goal. We've made considerable progress with this goal. We've implemented new curriculum and new curriculum resources in ELA, science, social studies, and math. We have funded professional development that supports enhancements in co-teaching, executive functioning skills, special education, and we have done a review of how we can improve the delivery of our special education services at Hale. Our next steps include creating a common assessment, multiple common assessments, to help us determine how successful we've been in the different initiatives in our teaching and learning goal. Our school climate goal, I think this is something that you will see again, and you'll probably see for a number of different school improvement plans. I feel like we're always working to improve the climate that our building has, the environment in which students walk into. Creating a climate goal, a safe climate and culture at Hale Middle School is not only a school improvement goal, but it is also a professional goal of mine. We've made progress, and I'm happy with where we are right now at Hale, but there is more work that's left to be done on how to have a great school environment and culture here that is safe for all of our students. The final goal there, goal number 4, is a school safety goal. We've taken here monumental steps in making the physical plant at Hale Middle School a safer facility. This includes, but is not limited to, many more cameras, protective barriers at entry points, direct radio communication with Stow PD and this Stow Fire Department dispatch, an increased number of trainings and safety drills. And I would say most importantly, we have open dialogue with our local fire and police departments who constantly advise us and help us get better and safer for our students. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Friend.
I think I'm next, Kyle. So as Principal Grady mentioned, and as Mrs. Friend, Principal Friend is going to cover, and I think you've already seen that there's more similarities to our goals and outcomes than there are differences, although there are slight differences. In terms of the direction that we continue to move at Florence Sawyer School with regard to climate and safety, Principal Grady already mentioned, we have added a significant number of cameras and worked in developmentally appropriate ways as we're a pre-K through 8 school in helping our students understand the importance of being prepared and being safe, like Hale Middle School, and I'm sure Luther Burbank as well. We are really grateful for the partnerships that we share with the Bolton Fire Department and the Bolton Police Department. They are always there for us, working in partnership with us, to continue to provide a safe environment for everyone who interacts with the Florence Sawyer School campus. We have been conscious of continuing to create a school climate that is first and foremost physically and emotionally safe, and we have, and you'll go through the school improvement plan, but we have we're proud of a number of the areas that we've been able to systemically address social and emotional needs of our students. In addition to that, the work that is ongoing and is now directed through our school district. With regard to our community partnerships and the primary goal in developing and implementing and sustaining a communication plan so that all of our family members and stakeholders have what they need from us in a timely fashion. And I'm grateful to our school council for the work that we've done together to get us to a point where we've been able to not only have consistency in terms of our communication across the board, but to highlight some of the opportunities that students have at Florence Sawyer School. With regard to our third goal, teaching all learners, we continue to be diligent and proactive to get an understanding of how students would like to extend their day, and to respond to that with extracurricular activities to the degree that we can, driven by student interest. We think we have a pretty comprehensive set of extracurricular activities across the district, and grateful for your continued support in that work to allow us to extend the day for students and to have an enriching curriculum during the day with our students. And with that, I will turn it over to Principal Friend for Luther Burbank.
Thank you, Principal Bates, and thank you for allowing us to speak about our schools. We get really excited when we have the opportunity to share the accomplishments that our students and our staff and our families make each and every day. So thank you for the opportunity. And it's also it's hard to choose what to highlight. So thank you. We're very, very proud and very grateful of our Luther Burbank School Council, just like Principal Grady and Principal Bates indicated. We have a highly dedicated and collaborative group comprised of 4 faculty, 4 parent representatives, 2 administrators, myself included, and we are excited to have a student representative because we know how important student voice is. We also have council norms, which have helped keep our conversations going, and I believe the other councils also have norms for meetings, which have kept the meetings transparent and productive and really collaborative. Our council has been an instrumental component, probably more so in the past couple years than ever. They've been involved in our reopening task force work when we moved between models, and they've also helped us with our opening again this year. So they've really gone above and beyond, and we're incredibly thankful for the hard work and the vision they help provide us. As a school, much like our Florence Sawyer School and our Hale colleagues, we've worked through and continue to work through a variety of topics which are overlapping in nature. They centralize on 3 themes: teaching all learners, climate and safety, and community partnership. And the teaching and learning topic, or the teaching all learners topic, really is all about fostering and enriching our students' experiences within the classroom and then beyond the school day. In terms of climate and safety, as Principal Bates mentioned, providing a school environment that is physically and emotionally safe for all of our stakeholders, that includes our students, our staff, and our families, is important to us. And you're going to hear me speak about our reliance on survey data to help make sure that we're moving forward in that area is really important to us. And then the goal 3 topic is community partnership. And this one's really twofold, and one we've struggled with for a bit of it, and that is really tapping into our community as a resource. When we started the first year of our plan, we worked on developing a pool of community resources to bring in experts into our classrooms and make those real life authentic connections with our curriculum. And that work became halted when we entered into closure in March of 2020. But we are, we're bringing it back, and we're also continuing to focus on the second part of this goal area, which is around communication, as Principal Bates had mentioned. So on the right-hand side of the slide are just some highlighted outcomes that I'd just like to touch upon briefly in support of each of these goal areas. And the first one, we're incredibly excited about work we've made in our 8th grade, which focuses on the cross-curricular integration of STEM, particularly engineering connections with science, math, and art. And that work has been really exciting for us to see the results of our student engagement in 8th grade science, particularly, and the enthusiasm that our teachers emote as a result of that work. So to give you a couple of examples, we have experiences such as our bottle rockets unit, which combines design thinking with a concept of transfer of energy, and our Save the Andes unit, which focuses on the essential question of how do humans affect natural resources and ecosystem dynamics. And so that cross-curricular integration between those content areas really works to enrich the learning experiences for our students. Exciting. Our teachers are looking on a chemistry-focused integration this year. As Principal Bates had indicated, we too are continuing to expand and adjust our extracurricular offerings to meet the needs of our students. We've added a before-school physical activity extracurricular offering for our students, and the numbers are growing and growing and growing. So we're offering fitness room and basketball in the morning, and that's really getting our students' heart rate up and ready for the day. So that's exciting. After school, we've offered American Sign Language, which is a new offering too. So those are exciting. And then rounding out this goal is a development of a peer mentoring program with our friends next door at Mary Rowlandson, and our middle school students serving as mentor readers and writers, and a study buddy program, which we started last year to keep students connected. And we had 27 students at the middle level participate in connecting with another peer to work after school on homework and studying. And we're going to continue that program this year. In terms of goal 2 and climate and safety, as I had mentioned, we really work to use survey data to help inform and get a gauge on where our students and our staff and our families are at with the perception of emotional and physical safety. We have surveyed students at the end of the year and asked them questions about how they feel affectively in terms of physical and emotional safety at school, whether they can identify a trusted adult within the school building. And we've accelerated those surveys. So in fact, we surveyed our 7th and 8th graders today as a check-in, because we really feel like we can't wait. We can't wait even to the middle of the year or the end of the year. We need to do it now. And that information helps inform school planning, such as advisory and parent outreach. And we're going to be rolling out a parent-teacher book club next month, and all of this information helps inform our work. In terms of Alice and the great work of Nurse Gilbicki, we are fully implemented with our Alice safety protocols, and I know that all of us have already engaged in drills and are looking to further drills. In fact, we're engaging in another one next week. We're incredibly grateful for the support we received from the Lancaster Police and Fire Department, and we are very grateful for the addition of the security cameras in the building inside and out. And then finally, in terms of goal 3, as I had mentioned earlier, part of this goal was around really maximizing our community-based resources as experts, and we're looking to re-engage that work this year. And we're using our survey data to help inform the strength and efficacy of our communication, both at the classroom level and then at the building-based level. And I know we're all doing that work. So our work is not done. And we're excited about the year ahead, and we're excited about the Portrait of a Graduate work and our new building project to really help strengthen what we're doing at the K-8 level. And it's all exciting, and we really appreciate the support that we garner from the school committee and our families. So thank you. I think that's it.
Again, thank you to our 3 principals. At this point, we'll entertain any questions from the committee.
Anybody have any questions? Rich, start us off.
I just had a quick question, and I didn't see a part of your update, but I take it we've seen such few COVID infections that it's not something worth putting as part of the report?
Their reports are strictly their school improvement plans developed with their school council. So I'm not, maybe I'm confused by your question, Mr. Eckel.
I didn't mean, sorry, I shifted from the SIP. I was going back to your overall superintendent update.
Oh,
so I was directed to you.
So Madam Chair, I believe I can only really speak to the agenda item that we're on. So I think we just need to stick with this agenda item.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think just to Rich's question, the school improvement plans are about academic environments and climate and culture and serving all students. So we don't usually address health standards in the school improvement plans typically.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought this school improvement plan presentation was part of, Dr. McGuire speaks at that, so forgive me. Thanks for,
No worries.
I didn't mean to, there was no trick. I didn't mean to get us off track.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions about the school improvement plans? Just from a timing perspective, Kirk, these school improvement plans will tie themselves up around May.
Yeah.
And you'll kind of set your gaze on building new school improvement plans, and they have a lifetime of 1 year.
Yeah, you can look at multi-year arcs on that. This is where having this strategic plan is going to be a very valuable tool for us, because that'll be the overall vision of the school system. And the school improvement plans will be written annually towards progressing through that strategic plan.
Great.
And I just want to take an opportunity to say about our principals that the summer when we had a chance to have our first retreat together, we spent some time and did some workshopping around activating our school councils and getting them engaged in these conversations. And I can't thank them enough for really going out to their communities, proposing their elections, working with their volunteer organizations to get that done so that we could really get our community engaged. Because with the things like the building project, our portrait of graduate work, certainly the entry work I'm doing, they've been instrumental in that. So I can't thank them enough, and just want to express that publicly. We got 3 more all-stars coming to our next school committee meeting. And it'll be at that time that we'll just ask you, Madam Chair, to make one action to accept all the school improvement plans at one time.
Indeed. Mike.
Yeah, just wanted to thank the principals for sharing the improvement plans. Those are great. I love that they're so focused on kids' well-being and social emotional health and are data-driven. I'm curious about the portrait of a graduate and where I or anyone else who is interested could go to learn more about that.
Mr. Fresh, I'm going to be speaking that when Attorney Gleason hands me the baton at the building committee update.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I think the beauty of all of this, Kirk, is that you are building an umbrella, a visionary umbrella, if you will, under which all other things can live and kind of find shelter and plug in. So, that connectivity is something that I think everybody wants to be a part of something bigger and make their work very meaningful. And I can see that, it's always kind of been there, and I'm happy that you're kind of pushing it and broadening it and bringing parity across all of the towns, across all the schools, across all of the grades, and across all of the kids and teachers. So bravo.
Well, I thank you for that, Madam Chair, but honestly, the credit goes to our principals. What I did is introduce a conversation. They were the ones through my entry conversations and other avenues that showed me, hey, here's some things that we really would like to see happen for our school system. So they certainly deserve the credit for putting together a cohesive vision.
Thank you for listening. Mary.
And I want to thank our the 3 principals who are here for the incredible work that you do with your school councils and how you have activated and how the school councils inform your work. And I also want to acknowledge the collaboration that the three principals have together, because what that does is it keeps the individuality of each of your communities, but it strengthens the ideas and the vision you're able to put forward. So we're very, very fortunate to have you, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
All right. Thank you one last time to our middle school principals. Appreciate it, guys. And we're going to move on to our next matter of new business now, and that is sharing out insights from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees conference, which happened at the same time as our last meeting. And I'd like to welcome people who were there to kind of share out any, brief reports, anything that would enlighten us or that you found really important or interesting. Anybody want to start?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to defer to Dr. McCarthy. I know she's also in attendance, and I'd like to start with her first if she has anything to say. If not, I do have a brief statement regarding the time that I spent in Barnstable.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Gleason. If that's okay, I'll go. But the first part of what I was going to say was going to refer to your report, Mr. Gleason, because what I am assuming is that my experience was different. And I can tell you that my experience in 2019, when I attended in person, was very different from my experience this time being a online remote participant. But it is, and I will talk about that a bit, but I would also like to say that certainly this year was far superior to last year when MASC was not able to even put on this conference. So, but I have to say that I went to, MASC had a preview, an orientation the week before, and I went to that. They used a program called WHOVA, WHOVA. And I went on, and there wasn't anything that was too terribly difficult about that. And I was able to go in and I looked and I chose from the agenda, et cetera. So I thought I was pretty well prepared. And then when Wednesday came and I went to go to my first conference, which was addressing the unique challenges of regional schools, something that I was really excited to go to. First thing that came up was, oh, Safari doesn't really work. You need Chrome. And so, okay, so I can do that. I've got Chrome too. Then I get in and there is no audio. And I can see people talking, but there's no audio. So I'm putting things in chat and putting things in chat. Finally, audio somehow comes on, and there's one camera in the back of the room. So you can see the people who are speaking, and you can see the display, and you can see the PowerPoint from a distance, but you can't read anything that's on the PowerPoint. So you can hear the speakers, and you can see some of the people who are there, but you can't see the PowerPoint. So can continue to write things in the chat, and other people did too. It really didn't get any better, but I have to say about that first, Christine Lynch from DESE, the person who's worked, that I've worked with in terms of the regional school agreement, Maureen Marshall from MARS, Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, Jay Sullivan, the Associate Commissioner in DESE, did a great presentation. And luckily these presentations were available so that they were able to be downloaded later. However, these technical challenges continued. I went to most everything I could find on budget. And I have to say that I went to one on budget, and it was very reassuring to see that one of the people presenting was Dr. Marco Rodriguez from Hudson Public Schools, and talking about that a budget is more than just a spreadsheet, and that it tells the story. And really, his budget in Hudson, obviously a district that is near and dear to my heart, was used as an exemplar. And hearing that right next door in Hudson, I mean, that was very reassuring. What I did go to, in terms of as many things as I could go to on budget, was also that I went to anything that had DEI. And so equity audits, I went to those, and they got a lot of ideas. I also saw that districts that are doing equity audits are paying quite a bit of money for the work in terms of equity audits. And so much of what all of that work in terms of equity and inclusion and diversity, it comes down to is some really difficult personal work that begins with the people who are in each district. And so I considered that the work that we're doing with Dear Jay is so appropriate. and that we are well situated. I also thought about the fact that some of these costs that these outside agencies are doing, and they seem very reputable, coming in and doing, the equity audits, those will be coming down in cost, it seems to me, so that if we later on decide that that's something that is advised, I think it would be a lot more reasonable. And I just want to tell you about, as I talk about the fact that in any of that work, it does begin with us. And we're thinking about our own preconceptions and prejudices, and really being more cognizant of our own thinking, and also metacognition. So on Thursday, there was a welcome by the Mashpee Wampanoag Indians, and it was only supposed to be 15 minutes. And so I would tell you that what I somewhat expected was perhaps it would have been traditional dress and like that kind. And anyway, that wasn't what it was. Brian Whedon, who he's Mashpee school committee member. He's also the chairman of the Wampanoag tribe. And what he did was he painstakingly and eloquently gave the history of the Wampanoag Indians, his people, in terms, and he went back to 1600s. And Richard Bourne, who came in, was a missionary there, and what had happened in terms of their sovereign land, how it was with different times through the courts recognized and taken away and recognized, and by the administration prior to this one on the federal level, disrecognized and becoming recognized again, so that they have something like half of 1% of their sovereign land. But I just wanted to say that it was revealing to me that what I expected and then what I learned was so different. So those are some of the moments that come in. Now, he also had the educational consultant who was there, and her grandson had written a song and performed that. And that was in the native Indian language, but it brought so much home, maybe even more so than any of the workshops that I went to. So finally, I will say that one advantage of being online is that you can go into workshops. And when you get in there and you find, wait a second, I know all this, or I've been here, done this, you can, without making a big fuss, you can get out of there and you can go to something else and come into it. So there are advantages to being online. I missed the camaraderie, the social connections of being in person. And it turned out that most everything was available online afterwards, a lot of the resources. So I have to say that I had one PowerPoint I've already shared with the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, and I think that'll be very helpful in our work. So I'm glad that I went. It was so far from being there in person. And I just think that this particular application did not take advantage of the technology that I hear that schools are able to do and provide. It was a lot less, but it was better than nothing, a lot better than nothing. So that's my report.
Thanks, Mary. Sorry that hybrid experience was not up to par for you. But it sounds like you did gain. So thanks for going and participating. Joe, what can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, and what I'm going to say is going to be very brief, and it's going to be more of a universal perception of the MAS Joint Conference in Barnstable. So first of all, I'd like to thank the district and the taxpayers of the district for allowing me to represent the Nashoba Regional School District at the annual MAS Joint Conference in Barnstable, Mass. I also want to specifically thank and especially thank Ms. Masterson for all of her assistance in handling registration, accommodations, and logistics. In my time as a district committee member with this district and in my prior district, I've had the honor of attending both the MASC and the MAS Joint Conference, as well as the National School Board Association Conference. And both conferences are well organized, well run, and well attended. And I would encourage all of my fellow committee members who have not had a chance to attend either the MASC conference or even the NSBA conference to do so during their time as district committee representatives. And I do understand that carving out the time for some of our members who are teachers is difficult. Now, the foregoing being said, I do want to point out that both the MASC and the National School Board Association are first and foremost advocacy groups. All one needs to do is read their mission statements, and you will see that advocacy is their first priority, and that is what they do. I mentioned in the foregoing, for while I am keen to encourage all of my fellow members to attend these educational conferences when able, attendees should note that these organizations are not disinterested, neutral arbiters of educational issues. Both organizations take positions, and those positions are made a part of their conference presentments, oftentimes to the exclusion of counter positions. These conferences are their turf and their rules, so future attendees should note that you may not always hear a balanced presentment. On a more positive note, however, I will state that one of the panel discussions that I attended, the audience was polled on whether their districts were in compliance with what the panel was presenting, whether the district was engaging in a hybrid approach, or whether the district was engaged in something counter to the presentment. In responding, there was a clear majority in favor of the panel's presentment. There were a few districts who had opted for the hybrid approach, and there were a scant number of hands for the counter position. Now, I understand, as the old saying goes, pride goeth before the fall, but I was very proud to be in that scant number of respondents whose district was embracing the counter position. And I was proud because it shows that, you know, our district, or I suggested our district, forges its own path, and that our district embraces what it feels is best for our district. So I was very proud in my leaving this conference to note that not always does this district embrace everything that the MASC stands for. So I want to encourage our committee and our district and our parents to continue forging our own path. And I hope that will always be in the best interest of our students. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thanks, Joe. Any other members of our group here who have anything from the conference they'd like to share with us or the community? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on. Thank you guys for that. We're on to unfinished business now, and we're going to be looking at the superintendent's goals. And really, this is a continuation of a conversation we started last week or 2 weeks ago when Kirk presented his goals to us. And it is now time to vote on those goals. And I think that Mike, you might have a motion for us that you could read.
Apologies, I had to unmute. I will move to accept the 2021-2022 superintendent goals as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Nice job, Mary. Do we have any discussion? Anything that you'd like to weigh in on? All right. Seeing no hands, I'll take the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And Brett?
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes. Good to know, Kirk. Your goals are official. All right, guys, the next matter here is the school committee protocols. And in the meeting materials, I have a kind of, I guess you would call it hybrid document that includes both the model protocols and it also includes our current protocols. And I've highlighted all of the language, as I said I would at our last meeting. I've highlighted all of the language in our current protocols that if we were to adopt the model protocols would no longer be a part of our norms. So I hope that that was clear. Steve, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion.
Sure thing, sir.
and then we can go into discussion. I would like to make a motion that we maintain our protocols as they are.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chairman, for purpose of discussion.
Thanks. All right, so Steve, would you like to perhaps begin or comment, or would you like to hand the floor over?
No, I'll hand the floor over.
Okay. Anybody have anything to say about the motion? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I think the last time we had this discussion, which was our last meeting 2 weeks ago, I think a few of us kind of shared a similar sentiment that either we had grown out of the existing protocols or that the tone that was struck with those protocols was something that we were no longer aligned with. I do feel that the most ideal approach would be to spend time at a workshop to develop our own updated protocols that represent the turnover of the school committee. I don't think it's feasible at this point. So I'm actually not in favor of leaving our current protocols in place. I'm actually in favor of adopting the standardized protocols as an interim solution until we can meet together and develop these more organically.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Horesh stole a little bit of my thunder, but I agree with him in theory, but not in principle. I too was not in favor of the motion as presented, but only because I was hopeful that we could look at these model protocols as Mr. Horesh had suggested at our workshop. But contrary to what Mr. Horesh is saying, I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Rubinstein. Let's, until such time as we've had a chance to look over these model protocols and really dissect them and go through them and make sure that's what we want to do, just keep our present protocols in place. I don't love them, but you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix. So I would support Mr. Rubinstein's motion only insofar as we keep them in place until such time as we have an opportunity to work them out at our workshop in August.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, Mary.
The first time that I read the model, the MASC protocols, you know, I thought that there was a lot there that I agreed with. And then when I went closer and looked at them, I mean, they're 2012, 2013, although there have been some language that is a little bit more updated. They were the Taunton, you know, school committees, and some of them talk about how, in fact, the whole blanket beginning is how school committee meetings should be run. And there are things in there like the superintendent will utilize subcommittees. And I mean, there are things like that that I say, what? No, that it's, you know, the superintendent doesn't utilize. I would hope that, and I think that our superintendent would certainly recognize and honor subcommittees, but it's the school committee who appoints and composes and utilizes. And so there are other things. The more I thought about it, the more I wish that we had a time where we could look at this and take some from, you know, MASC, because as Mike was saying, there is a tone that is in some of ours that is, it's demeaning to school committee. However, I don't find that the MASC, and again, we're almost in 2022, 10 years old. I think that we made some progress on some of ours that are the ones that are currently in place that are actually better than some of the, you know, kind of the bland generic that we have from MASC. So I'm not sure. I wish we had time. I wish that we would have a chance to look at this. I think it would take some time at a meeting to go through. But even some of the language, you know, so the city. Well, we don't have a city. We've got towns. I know that's just that's a minor detail that we could take care of. But I think that someplace in between would be where we might end up, and it would be more authentic, and it would represent us. And the protocols, MASC, say how a meeting should be held. They don't necessarily say that they are school committee protocols. It's a lot about the superintendent, and I don't think that we dictate about the superintendent. Anyway, so I'm really in between.
Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Steve.
I would just like to comment on my resolution. My resolution was not a perpetual acceptance of ours, but it was basically at this point in time, we stay with ours. And at some point when we have the time, perhaps at the seminar this summer, we really hash it over. Or perhaps we turn it over to a subcommittee to come back with some recommendations, the protocol subcommittee. But that's basically was the underlying thought of my motion.
Thanks. Go ahead, Joe. You're muted, Joe. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. The model protocols that are on the district letterhead, the footnotes on those protocols, was that all MASC?
Yes.
That's an immense amount of small print and dicta. And even some of it, I went through it. I'm like, I'm not sure if they've got the law right on some of that stuff, which is another reason why I was hoping that, I would embrace what Mr. Horesh is suggesting and perhaps what Mr. Rubinstein is suggesting. Let's hash this out in August. I think we could spend a whole week on this stuff.
Right. Yeah, Rich.
Hi. So I think the major one, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but the major hang up I have, and I know other committee members have it, is really, it wasn't highlighted by you. I'm sure that wasn't by design. You were probably just comparing and contrasting. But it's the idea that that members can only speak for the committee when designated to represent the committee. I feel strongly I'm elected by the voters in Stow, and so I should be able to speak. I wouldn't represent myself as speaking for the committee. But there was a time last year where I wanted to speak as a school committee member, and the prior chair did not allow me to do that. Right. And I know there's other, so that, I don't necessarily want to throw out them all together. I want to go through a thoughtful process too. But if I was going to make one change, it would be under the operating protocols. I think I don't know. It's right after where you say how we improve. You highlighted them. Number 2.
Yeah.
Since that seems like, to me, I believe in free speech. I'm sure we all do. But there was a time where, for whatever reason, the school committee wanted to, gave the power to the chair to, make it so that they could never speak. And I think that's a mistake.
All right. So that's something you'd want to address perhaps at the workshop, Rich. Do you?
Yeah,
agree?
I guess, if we were to affirmatively vote this motion to keep the existing protocols, I'd want to make an amendment. But I don't know that this is appropriate this time. If people want to support what I'm saying about that particular area, perhaps we could amend this one particular protocol. But I don't want to drag us down a rat's nest or do, work on one particular thing that's a whole other big, needs to be in consideration everything else. So if other people want to support that, I would move forward with the amendment, but I want to hear from my fellow committee members before I made any kind of. So where I'm going with this is I could make a motion to accept the protocols that there is with one change. But again, I don't want to do that, and if other people aren't comfortable with that.
I'll speak to that really quickly and just say that I actually kind of agree with that protocol in that we all need to be careful about giving people the wrong impression that any one of us has any control outside a quorum of the committee. And I think that it's just worded badly. I agree with the spirit of number 2, that I cannot speak for the committee. But I just think that the way that it's worded, it almost feels like a gag order. So I don't know that I would support managing that right now, but maybe later.
I mean, that sounds fine to me. I mean, if other people want to speak to it, it's fine, but I think it has a, like most policies or laws, it's all in how you apply it. I can tell you, I've only been on this committee for 2 years. This is the second of 2, and the first one, it was abused, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, without going too far down that rabbit hole, any other comments? Yeah, Sharon.
I think I'm agreeing with the suggestion to keep the protocols as they are until we have time to really thoughtfully work through them. And partially, I think that's because I feel like we have turned a page now. We have a new administration. We are in a very different place, and we are in a huge learning place. And that I would like to kind of take advantage of this time of learning new things and of working, for me anyway, because my first year experience on this committee was COVID. So I would like to be able to take advantage of the learning that will come through this year, and then take the time when we have a time. And if that time is at the August workshop, then that's the time that it is. If there is another time, then perhaps it could be done sooner than that. So that when we make the changes, we can really use all of the learning that we've taken from this year and make really strong protocols that will bring us forward, and that will serve us well for a long period of time.
Thanks, Sharon. So do you guys want to move this to a vote on Steve's motion now? Maybe. I feel like I'm sensing consensus on this. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just want to follow up on my colleague, Mr. Eccles' comments. I too have not been shy about raising my objections to protocol number 2 regarding the need for leave of the chair for individual members to speak before bodies politics in their towns. It has always rubbed me the wrong way that in this particular example, I don't think it's appropriate that a school committee member who may serve as chair, who resides in one particular community, should have any oversight of authority over another school committee member who resides in another community when he or she speaks before their select boards, their finance committees and what have you. That's what the voters of each town elected us to do, and we shouldn't be constrained in that regard. Though I do appreciate the sentiment of protocol number 2. And again, I'm not trying to go down, as Mr. Eccles say, a rat hole on this, but looking at that protocol, I mean, if we wanted to address it tonight, we could look to strike the second and third sentences of that. Just keep the first sentence that basically says it will make no independent commitments or take independent actions that relate to the school district. Because, as I've said, Madam Chair, I'll throw myself at the mercy of the committee. I was at the select board meeting several weeks ago with the superintendent, and I did not have leave of the chair to do that. And I think that other members of our committee have spoken to their select board members without seeking chair. So it's sort of an unenforceable protocol, but I do concur with the rest of the committee that let's keep everything in place until we have a chance to hash it out. But if there's any sentiment to embrace what Mr. Eckel is suggesting, and I certainly embrace it, Mr. Eckel, that strike lines 2 and 3, the second and third sentences of that, well, actually, that's 2, 3, and 4, I guess it would be, of that protocol, and just keep the sentiment that members of the committee will make no independent commitment or take any independent actions that relate to the school district.
Yeah, Rich.
I mean, I would move that.
Do you want Joe to make an amendment?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Go ahead, Joe.
You want me to move it, Mr. Eckel? It's your. I'm happy to do it. I'll do it. I would move to amend Mr. Rubinstein's motion in regards to protocol number 2, insofar as we continue to maintain the present protocols, yet we strike the second, third, and fourth sentences of protocol number 2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
If there's no further discussion on the amendment, let's take a vote. All right, so we're voting on the amendment that Joe just read to Mr. Rubinstein's motion. So Joe?
Yes, Madam Chair.
I would support it too. Yes. Rich?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yes.
Mike?
This is just the amendment?
Just the amendment.
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Brett?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion has been amended. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? All right, so we're going to take a vote on the motion. Does anybody need it reread? Everybody's clear? Rich?
I just have one question. I mean, I'm curious. Didn't we just accept the motion as amended, or did we just accept the amendment? So we have to
Just the
read.
amendment. Now we have to vote on the motion as amended.
I see.
How am I doing, Joe? How am I doing?
You're doing fantastic, Madam Chairman. So proud of you.
Does that make
Thanks.
sense, Rich?
Thanks for learning me, you guys.
Yeah. Joe's our teacher. All right, so let's vote on the motion to maintain our current protocols with the exception of the sentences Joe struck in his amendment. So let's vote. Joe?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Rich?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Steve?
No.
Brett?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
So the motion passes, but Alita, what was the margin? Was it 10 to, no?
8 to 2.
8 to 2, thank you. All right, everyone. So Alita, I will get you a document that is the embodiment of that motion. Is that okay? Or do you want to do it?
Whatever you prefer. I can just update it online.
Okay, that would be great. Thanks, Alita. As always. All right, everybody, let's get back to our agenda. Let's see. Oh boy, we're moving on to our Director of Business and Operations. Pat, you've been ever so patient. Thank you so much. And Kirk, perhaps you want to tee it up, but it's up to Pat and you.
Thank you all. My first item on the agenda is the fiscal year 20 annual audit. I'd like to ask you to take some time to review the reports, formulate some questions. I'm working on bringing a representative from the audit firm Melanson and Heath, they are our auditors, to a future meeting. And just an FYI, we are deep in the fiscal year 21 audit. Hopefully, I can bring that to you in late winter or early spring. So I am hopeful that we'll move a little quicker with this one than we did with the last one. And COVID has slowed things down for many of us. Does anybody have any questions about that process?
Go ahead, Rich.
I just wanted to point out that the Audit Advisory Committee, of which I'm chair, reviewed this process and accepted this already. So, I wanted to thank those committee members as part of this. But I love that we're bringing this forward and people can ask questions. If we want to bring the auditor in to have another meeting on it, we can. But just realize that the committee, which includes me and 3 other community members, already went through a similar process with them. So if the committee wants to know, school committee wants to know more, that's fine. But I would maybe perhaps encourage them to reach out to me directly or to Pat directly with questions. And we can probably knock this down rather than maybe taking school committee's valuable time to do that.
Up to you. Okay,
Sharon
so
has a hand. I'm sorry, Pat. Sharon has one question.
This is just a clarifying question. The 2020 audit that Pat is talking about now and the audit that Rich reported on a few weeks ago are one and the same audit, yes?
yes, that's the fiscal year 2020 audit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alita, can you bring up that PowerPoint for me? Did we lose Alita? I think we lost Alita.
What is the PowerPoint that you're referring to?
It's
the operations and stabilization presentation?
Yes, yes.
You didn't lose me. Just give me a minute.
Oh, okay,
Oh, there
okay.
she is.
Got it. She's all good.
See you there.
Takes a couple minutes.
That's okay. There is a request that I explained the reason why we bring this report forward every month. I think you have to hit return on each line. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. The monthly results of operations is a summary report, and it's for all of the 100 fund, which is our general fund expenditures. We generate it monthly, and monthly I go through a process of projecting expenditures till the end of the year. Again, this is the month of October, and I've talked about this before. It's still early in the year. We still have 8 months to go, and as far as the school year. So the projections usually spend down most of their budget because that's what they budgeted for. Things change, and I'll have a better insight as time goes on. You'll see that availability number will change. And it also provides insight into where the district is in regards to staying within the budget. So next page. Can you bring up the report next instead? The actual report.
Then I have to go out of the PowerPoint, then come back into the PowerPoint. Because you didn't include it in the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
So do you want to do that? Do you want to stop sharing, share that? Okay.
Yes, sure. That would be great.
Madam Chair, may I add some color commentary or ask a question of Pat that's hopefully instructive? So bringing up that that monthly operations report, I think it's important to realize that it's looking at where we are to date. So when we see positive or negative numbers, it's talking about kind of where we are in relationship towards the end of the year. Isn't that right, Pat?
That is correct. In the projected expenditures, I look at things that I know at this point that are happening. Things have changed a lot since we voted the budget, and things that are out of our control. And staffing is one of the things. When we hire new staff, they come in lower or higher than anticipated. And this is what these numbers reflect at this point. Now, does anybody have any questions about October's results of operation?
If I may chime in here,
Please do, yeah.
These were reviewed by the Budget and Warrant Committee on Monday, and we had no questions on this.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, seems there are no questions. I don't think.
And Alita, can you go to the second page of the PowerPoint now? Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to explain what our stabilization funds are and why we're going to vote on something tonight in regards to them. The full-day kindergarten stabilization was established with the permission of the Commissioner of Education. Normally, stabilization funds are for capital type items. In order to do something like this, where it was to fund an actual program within our education budget, we had to get special permission and actually got it very quickly. It was something that was supported by the Department of Education. In this process, the reason why we needed the stabilization fund was because of we have what they call a gap year. And the gap year is the year that the district does not receive funding for the full-time equivalent of that kindergarten student. We would receive 0.5 of their FTE, but not the 1.0. And the reason being is because Chapter 70 funding is always a year behind. So it's always based on the activity of the previous year. In fiscal year 21, we spent the $400,000 that was in the stabilization fund to fund that gap year, along with E&D funds. Tonight, I will be looking for a vote to approve the expenditure of that $400,000 from the stabilization fund. Next page, please. Again, we went to the towns and created another stabilization fund for our track and field. And this is to cover extraordinary costs related to the repair or the upkeep of the turf and field at the high school. The latest repair that we had to do that was somewhat expensive was the replacement of the wheel layer, and it was completed in late June. There were some delays due to COVID, and we were actually lucky that it was completed before the fall programs began, practicing football and whatever. So again, I have the next sheet, please. I have a breakdown of the expenditures from that account. The cost of the expenditure for the repair to the wheel layer was, we went out to bid for this and it came out at $156,720. The turf and field stabilization balance on 6/30/2021 was $144,360. The reason being, we've been putting money into the stabilization fund for 3 years. And the reason why it's less than 150, we put 50,000 in each year, is because we had to pay for some engineering costs as well. And also, we had originally planned to do this project a year sooner, and costs have gone up. But I knew during this process that we had some remaining funds in the capital, the original capital project that we could use for this. And it has been recommended by our auditor that we do so to close that out of the capital project. So there was $9,228.65 left in that capital project line, which is also covered part of the cost. And we've had a high school turf field revolving fund for many years. It was established for things like this, a special repair or a special need for the field. There's about $14,000 in that account, and I used $3,131.35 for this to cover the remaining of the cost. So again, I will need a vote from you to spend money from the stabilization fund. And that would be the $144,360,000. Next page.
Oh, one more page. It looks like Kirk might want to jump in really quick.
Oh, I can't see you, Kirk.
Yes, Ms. Maroney, you can please correct me if I'm wrong here. This came before you earlier this summer in July to vote approval. That's different in what we're asking for tonight. This is actually activating the funds of the stabilization. Is that correct, Ms. Maroney?
Can you repeat that? You kind of cut out a little bit for me. I'm sorry.
There was a vote in July to activate to engage the contract to repair the field.
Correct.
This is to actually pay the invoice and activate the funds.
Right.
So
This is authorization.
if people were connecting it back to the vote you took back in July, you have an understanding of that.
Yes. So what I need from you tonight is a vote to approve the expenditure of $400,000 from the full day kindergarten stabilization fund, which will close that fund. And another vote to approve the expenditure of $144,360 from the turf field stabilization fund.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So I wasn't really prepared to bundle those unless it goes smoothly. So at this moment in time, the two expenditures are together in the motion. So do you guys have any discussion on this? Mike, I think I saw your hand.
That was only to make the motion, but Steve preempted me, so I'm good.
Okie doke. Rich?
I maybe hastily seconded this. I think we probably should split them out. Do one and then the other. So
Well, it's seconded now, my friend. So let's see how it goes.
well, we could amend it, can't we? Or we could
Vacate. It might be fine. We might be fine. Do you have any discussion on the content of the motion?
No, I fully support it.
Pat, can you just help my brain understand? Last year was the gap year for the kindergarten full day.
Yes.
With unfortunate timing. And so you're just trying to release the money to pay because Chapter 70 is just now catching up. And you want to kick that money to E&D? Or I thought we already authorized.
No, actually, I mean, from an accountant's point of view, I would charge expenditures for full day kindergarten directly to the stabilization fund during the year, because that is the process. And we have 400,000 in there. What I want from you is the approval for that expenditure.
But I guess what I have such trouble with on this is that, so this year is funded by the Department of Ed. The full FTE is being funded this year. It's just that we won't have money for it until next year. Is that right? Because Chapter 70 gives us money a year later.
Okay, so in fiscal year 21, we had full day kindergarten, of which we would be short over $600,000 to cover that expenditure. We used the stabilization fund and we put additional money from E&D into the budget to fund that program. So in fact, what we did was we pulled those full day kindergarten expenditures out of the 100 fund, general fund budget and charged them to the stabilization. When we had our last meeting for the year, the expenditures weren't complete, so we couldn't vote. So I'm just getting to this now for you to approve it.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'm sorry for the confusion. If it made it sound like this was the gap year, that is not the case.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Steve, go ahead.
This is what accountants do. It's really an accounting thing. We expended the money, but now we have to account for it to balance our, the fiscal year 21.
Right. Mike, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, Pat, just a quick question on this. We have, I forget what the number was, something like $156,000 left in the stabilization fund for the track. Is that right? Something like that?
No, we do not.
Well, what was the balance? Remember, we had a balance, and then we had some money left over from a revolving fund.
It was 144.
Okay, whatever.
Right, we had 144,000 left in that we had funded for the turf and field stabilization fund. So every year we had been putting money in that,
right?
Because we knew we were going to have to do the wear layer. When we originally costed that out, using $50,000 as a minimum we would have to put away, we delayed it further another year. And that's why the expenditures really didn't catch up. And that's why I had to dip into those other two accounts to cover.
Oh, I see. Those were extra expenses, not a balance of the account.
Right.
At this point, if we make those expenses, we improve the motion, we're down to zero then.
Exactly.
And do we have to officially close that stabilization fund out?
Well, we wouldn't, that I don't know. I don't know if we have to officially close the full day kindergarten stabilization because we wouldn't need that again.
Right.
The turf and field stabilization fund will have to continue because this isn't the only repair we will have to do this. We will actually, the next expenditure is going to be a lot bigger. It won't be 150, it'll probably be double, maybe triple of that. So we're going to really have to aggressively fund stabilization for that for the future.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any
You're
other
welcome.
discussion on the motion? Questions? All right, so we are going to vote to approve these expenditures. The numbers are $400,000 from the kindergarten stabilization fund, and second expenditure is $144,360 from the turf and field stabilization fund. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Now we're going to take the vote. So Mike, is that still a hand up? No?
Oh, no, sorry. It takes a time for me to figure out how to lower it.
All right, so Mike, do you vote for this motion? How do you vote?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yeah.
Karen?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
Motion's passed. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to finally our student representatives. So Sonia, you've been so patient. And I think, did we lose Dan? Is Dan with us still?
He's still in here. So.
Oh, hi, Dan. Oh, good. I'm so glad. All right. So welcome. What can you share with us?
Dan, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. So there's a couple things we wanted to talk about. One of the things in particular was like the new, obviously, introduction of the online hall pass. There was a little bit of hesitancy, of course, because, change is hard, but we're going to see how things go throughout the week. We're going to collect data, figure out what people are thinking about the whole online hall pass. The other thing we were going to talk about, there's the whole Alice training thing that we went over in school. I think that's definitely a good thing to go over, and all of the students understood that that was necessary. And in the unfortunate event that something dangerous could happen. And I'll turn it over to Sonia.
Awesome. Yes. I don't know how much you guys know about that, but we got introduced to our online hall pass thing today. So that's what he was talking about. It's new thing. And then just a little update on the rest of the school. Our school play, Arsenic and Old Lace, they're in Tech Week. This week we had our winter sports meeting, so that's exciting. We're getting started into that. We have our Powerpuff game on Monday. So any non-football player is welcome to play. And that's really exciting. We've been planning that with student council. And then also our outside pep rally is on Tuesday, and we have a little spirit week leading up to that. So that's likely to raise some spirit. And so there'll be like games and competitions. There's field hockey game happening right now. They're in the final four. It's very excited. I'm keeping myself updated. And then this weekend, cross country is going to States. And then other things I want to talk about. I made out a survey last night and I sent it out to the school. So we started collecting a bunch of data. I think right now I have almost like 100 responses from students. So I asked questions like, how do you feel that the student body has responded to the masks? And there is a pretty alarming amount of people saying that like masks are still being worn improperly. So Dan, me, and a bunch of other students were working on like figuring out how we can help that. But it's still like a pressing issue with just improper mask wearing. And then we also collected some data about how students feel that they're supported by their peers and also their teachers. And we're really excited to like bring that information in with you guys if you have any questions, and then also more directly like talk to Dr. Boynton and how we can like really address everybody's needs as a student body. And I think that's all I was gonna say. Yeah. But
That's great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's super good. It's awesome. You guys have a lot of fun things coming up. Do you guys have any questions for the students? Anything related to what they were talking about or anything in addition that they can perhaps talk to us at a future meeting about? Oh, I see Joe's hand. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Forgive my ignorance, but perhaps someone, whether it be the student reps or somebody in administration, could enlighten me as to exactly what is an online hall pass and how does that work?
I can talk about that question. We are just newly learning about it too, so we're not like super knowledgeable on the whole system, but you'll have your Chromebook and sign in through this website, like My Homework something, and then it'll allow like the administrators to see like which bathroom you're going to and like what you're like how long it takes. And that's where a lot of the hesitancy has been. Just students aren't super keen on that, but we're going to see how that sentiment trends. Like we got a lot of results in the survey about how they're feeling now. And then after we're starting our like pilot right now. So we're just seeing how it is, and then we're going to reassess. But we're going to send out another survey and kind of compare how like the initial responses are to how students are feeling after it's been in place for a few days. So I can't fully explain the whole system because I don't really understand it that well yet.
Kirk, do you have any insight on this, or maybe Todd? I'm not sure. Or maybe Pat seems to have some insight.
When we did our tour of Bill Ricca Memorial High School, the students are using it there. And one of the assistant principal in the school showed exactly what it looks like. You know, basically if a kid has to go to the library, go to the nurse, whatever, their phone becomes their pass. So you have an electronic document that shows where kids are in their movement in the schools.
Dr. McGuire, was this a methodology that Dr. Boynton learned out from another one of our principals? Because doesn't Luther Burbank do something similar? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, they do something similar. You know, it is a new methodology for hall passes with students. And again, like Pat mentioned, as we visit new schools, newer buildings, they're using that kind of technology. But yeah, that's been something that's been initiated at one of the middle schools.
I see Dan's hand. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so one thing I heard mentioned, at Nashoba, we are not going to be using our phones for the online hall pass. They've only so far given us the option to use our Chromebooks, which is also part of where the hesitancy comes from, because it's inconvenient and our Chromebooks aren't always as reliable, and it's a little bit more time consuming to make a hall pass with a Chromebook. But we're going to see how it goes. There's a soft start for the implementation of it for up until Tuesday, and we're going to see how it goes, collect data on it, figure out how people are finding the system.
All right. Any other questions for the students? Steve?
Yeah, what you seem to be describing is a tracking system for your students. So you're basically going to know where they are at all times. Is that, am I mistaken with that?
Yeah,
Sonia,
that's about right.
What?
Sonia, go ahead.
Yeah, that's roughly kind of the sentiment, and a lot of students are feeling that, like, a little bit, I don't know. Well, they're expressing a lot of extreme hesitancy. So, but tied to that,
I can understand that.
Being tracked. Yeah. But yeah, we're really looking to hear how their and like our responses are to it, because it's just the pilot for now. So we'll see how it goes and what reactions are.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
From like the teacher point of view, the reason why the tracking is like a thing is because they want to know where a student is if, say, they go to the library, or say they went to the nurse or something, and they stopped on the bathroom along the way or something, and they don't show up to the nurse as seen via the online system. That's obviously a reason for concern, and something probably happened to them. Or, for example, a student says they're going to the library, they make a hall pass, they don't show up at the library. I mean, obviously something happened to the student, or the student is skipping class, they're not supposed to. There's just like all different kinds of reasons. Could be for like the Alice reason, like we talked about. In relation to that, we'll know a student is in the bathroom and not in the classroom at the time if a lockdown occurs. So things like that help us keep track of where a student is at any given time, and it's kind of helpful.
Steve, follow up?
Yeah, they may not know the reference, but Big Brother is watching. I have a real issue with this. And I think this is a program that really should have come before us. This impacts the students in the building. And I hope you've cleared this all with their parents. Or is this just something that's been instituted?
Kirk, I don't know if you want to speak to that, or perhaps this is something we could talk about at a later meeting when we have more information.
And I'll talk to Dr. Boynton about that too. Let's be clear that when students are in class and they're excused from class, it's teachers' responsibility to track where the students are. This is digitizing that. So rather than giving a piece of paper, it's kept in a digital framework. For the exact, Dan, you spoke to the very specific things we talked about, like, the fire drills pulled and you go outside, where did Dan go when he went with his pass? So rather than putting it on a checkboard with your pencil, instead, it just loads into a digital database.
There's no GPS tracker.
Oh, no, it's nothing like that. No.
Around the building. Yeah. Mary, go ahead.
So as a former principal, it's just crystal clear to me that what we're talking about is something that is administrative. It is not the province of school committee. This is not a policy. This is administrative. And as our superintendent was saying, we are responsible, the classroom teacher, the principal, system principals, for the students and the safety of the students. And so we find out about this because we have our student representatives. And so, but this is not our province. And so it's interesting to hear this because we probably wouldn't have heard this except if we have high school students. But I just want to say that our opinion on this is irrelevant because this is administrative.
Go ahead, Kirk.
Yeah, and I also want to commend Dr. Boynton working with her students in developing a formative assessment, then concurrent assessment and post-assessment on this effect with students so that the students have feedback and are participants in developing a responsible system.
Rich, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say, as a classroom teacher at a middle school nearby, this is very common in our school. I mean, I do write out paper passes, but if they're going anywhere else but the bathroom, they sign out into a Google form. Happens at every grade. So if I understand this properly, it's pretty commonplace.
Okay. So super interesting stuff here. Any other comments or questions for the kids about other matters? Yeah, Kirk.
I just have one quick update as we were informed that the hockey team, the field hockey team is tied 2-2 and heading into overtime right now. I know, Sonia, they're coming along. We're gonna just pull for them while we're here. So
wow, they're such a great team. So many good things happening at the high school. Thank you so much to Dan and to Sonia. Really appreciate you being here. We're gonna think again about your timing and the agenda and as we move forward into the future, but we really appreciate you being here. And if nobody else has anything else for the students, I would welcome them to maybe go do their homework or get some sleep.
I just want to compliment them. They're doing a really good job of being part of the committee. That were clearly prepared and, great job.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks, guys. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to our next matter here, and that is subcommittee reports. If you don't mind, let's begin with the budget and warrant. Mr. Rubinstein.
The Budget and Warrant Subcommittee had our meeting on the 15th, where we reviewed the operations schedule or the operations payments for October, as well as started to talk about the budget creation schedule. We've tentatively at this point, the budget vote has been scheduled for March 9th of next year, and with the budget hearing to be approximately a week earlier on March 2nd. We had representatives from each of the three FinComs at our meeting, and one of the questions that was raised is, when are we going to start hitting the towns for their share of the initial work that's being done for the MSBA final decisions? And I was able to get information on that. Basically, the $1.5 million is bonded by the school, and therefore it would go into the interest payments on that bonding would be spread upon our budget, and eventually that $1.5 million will be folded into whatever budget we finally create for the either building of a new high school or whatever else MSBA informs us that they're willing to work with us. The next meeting of the Budget and Warrant Committee will be on the 13th at 7 p.m.
Great, thanks, Steve. To communication, Mike, I'm not sure if you want to share anything about communication. Amy did send me a little blurb to share out.
If you want to share the blurb, I can kind of fill that in.
Okay.
I didn't get that, but we actually haven't met for the month of November. It'll be happening, I believe, next week or the week after.
Yeah, she said that on the 30th.
Right.
And that there, it said we will be working on 2 of our goals, developing a survey and details for a recommendation to hold office hours prior to school committee meetings. And that Superintendent Downing has been invited to join you guys on the 30th so that we can collaborate with him on the purpose, content, and format of the communication related survey.
Right. So, I mean, other than issuing an agenda and a meeting time for the next meeting, we don't have any other updates from the previous time that we met from our last school committee meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then to the building committee.
Madam Chairman, as Superintendent Downing had indicated earlier in the meeting, I'm going to turn this over to him after I just tee it up for him right here. Just to bring the committee up to date from the last meeting, I had indicated that our next meeting was going to be on the 16th of this month at the behest of our Design Selection Committee, which again will include Ms. Maroney, Mr. Fromer from Lancaster, and our Superintendent, Mr. Downing. That meeting has been postponed to December 7th. We're going to allow the Selection Subcommittee to do what they're doing, and there is a hearing before MSBA on the 30th of this month, and I will this time turn it over to Superintendent Downing to fill you in on some of the specifics relative to this design selection process.
Thank you for that. And Madam Chair and School Committee, I owe you an apology. I wrote a description of this and neglected to include the link to the materials. So I will just make sure that link is included on the next agenda, but I'll also forward it to Attorney Gleason to include on the next building committee agenda as well. And it's just a basic description of the feasibility timeline for the building project to educate our community on what we're doing at this point in time. So as Attorney Gleason mentioned, myself, Pat Maroney, and Mr. Fromer of Lancaster are on the design selection committee of the MSBA. Our meeting for design selection will be on November 30th. And we've had 2 meetings thus far to go with Miss Marianne Williams from Skanska, our OPM, to look at the 7 applicants. And I have to tell you, Skanska did a brilliant job, and I think Ms. Maroney would agree with me, in creating a matrix of the 7 contractors and all the subcontractors to the contractors and the responsibilities they had, and have completed reference checks on those firms as well with other projects I've done. So we spent the last 2 meetings just sort of sifting through all that data, and we do have some candidates that are rising to the top, but it would be cart before the horse to lead any decisions on that, because we actually will score those applications at the MSBA meeting on November 30th. And it's my understanding that at that meeting, if there is just absolute consensus from the full committee at the MSBA, that there is one architectural firm that is clearly the firm to choose for design, that decision can be made at that time. What is more common is that 3 to 4 firms rise to the top, and then follow-up interview dates are set up. And those interviews would have, they're tentatively scheduled right now for December 14th, at which time the full MSBA Design Selection Committee would meet, conduct those interviews, and make a final decision at that time. Once that is in place and negotiations with the firm are completed, which we would hope would be sometime in January, that puts us into the sort of the design vision phase of the project, where the educational planner that is provided by the design firm that is selected will lead our school community in a multi-day process of walking through what our vision for the school system would be. So that is the approximately 50-person committee that would come together and share their ideas, be facilitated through a process that is informative. We know with the educational planners from all these firms are strong candidates that have experience in leading that work. So I'm very encouraged about that. From that process, then we hope to have that process done by April 1st to then give the architects time to draw up initial plans that are then submitted with our educational vision plan to the MSBA June 27th. So as I said, I've articulated this in a summary, Madam Chair, that I'll provide to both you and to Attorney Gleason for both meetings. Tangentially along the way, some important work we're doing that would inform that process but is not necessarily a requirement of the process, is the site visit meetings that Dr. McGuire already spoke about this evening as being an important part. And the other part is, you heard our principal speak to it earlier, and I spoke to it at the last meeting. Our portrait of graduate work is off and running. We're scheduled up for December 10th for our lead team to work with the planners. The lead team is being trained on how to then facilitate the faculty and staff competency meetings, as well as the community competency meetings. Those community competency meetings are those community meetings about the learning competencies will be hosted by each school's school council, where our community will be invited to participate in the selection of those key competencies. So there was probably a lot of information around the general update, but we should have more. And Attorney Gleason, we will be briefing you on the November 30th meeting at our next building committee meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so does that sum it up, Joe?
Yeah, the only thing I just wanted to clarify, and Superintendent Downey, you'll have, again, as per my email to you yesterday, you can tell me whether I'm on base or off base. So it's my understanding is that we had 7 respondents for design services. Now, those 7 respondents remain in contention through at least the 30th of this month. Is that
Yes. We don't whittle it down per se, but the whole point of going through the matrix exercise that I described is to give us sort of an exercise through what you need to be looking for in looking at your candidates. And in doing so, we clearly see some firms that are rising. We would just provide that feedback at the MSBA meeting when we do the official scoring of the firms.
And I'd ask the chair and Mr. Rubinstein, and of course, Ms. Cohen is not here, but any other members of the district, excuse me, of the building committee that are watching this to note what the superintendent says, because I think in my communication relative to the meeting on the 16th where we postponed it, I may have given the impression that there was already some exclusion of some of the designers. That is not the case, and I want to make sure that that's clear with everybody involved in this particular matter. We are all 7 members, all 7 respondents are still in contention through at least the 30th of this month. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
My apologies if I led you astray there, Attorney Gleason.
No, if you read my email, I believe I was the one who was quick to say that I misconstrued the import of your statement. There was no miscommunication on your part. It was a misunderstanding on my part. So I just wanted to clarify that with my fellow members, Mr. Rubinstein, Ms. Cohen, Ms. Vivirito, and to all the other members who may or may not be watching this evening. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Great, thank you guys. Thanks, Joe. So we'll move over to the Personnel Subcommittee, and that is Mary and me. We met today and had a very tidy agenda where we wrapped up some loose ends around the trainings that we want to do for the superintendent evaluation for the remainder of the year, which is all in the planning calendar. We also looked through the school manual to try to better hone our understanding of the school committee's responsibility around salary ranges and the deadlines that are associated with identifying them and approving them. And I'm going to reach out to Kirk to kind of discuss that further. And we also, well, I guess that's basically it. And Mary, you can add anything if you think I missed anything. Good. Okay, let's go over to the Policy Subcommittee and Karen.
There's really nothing to report at this point. We met beginning of November and reported at our last meeting. So we'll meet again at the beginning of December. We have some specific policy questions we have to go over.
Great. Now to our 4 advisory committee reports. Let's start with the audit. Rich, I'm not sure that there's anything that you need to add, is there?
No report, except that I've reminded the member from Bolton and the member from Lancaster that they do need to be reappointed. The member from Stow was appointed through next June.
Excellent, thank you. And now I'm going to turn to Sharon for our Dear Jay report. And Sharon has a little something that she'd like to share with us.
So Dear Jay has met several times over the last 2 weeks. They've been working really hard to bring their work into focus. And they've written a letter which, get comfortable, I'm going to read it to you. And they have some requests that they want to bring forward to the committee. So this letter is dated November 16th. They just sent it to me this morning. It will be, I asked Leah to put it in the meeting materials packet. So sometime soon it will be available so maybe everybody can take a look at it. But it reads, Dear Nashoba Regional School Committee, the Diversity, Equity, Acceptance, and Racial Justice Advisory Committee, which is Dear Jay, writes today in appreciation of your recognition that equity and racial justice are central to achieving our mission as a district. Specifically, we seek to support you as you move forward on the commitments and obligations the NRSC unanimously supported in the Statement of NRSC's Responsibility for Racial Justice and Equity and Anti-Racism Resolution of June 17th, 2020. The NRSC's Statement of Responsibility, as currently posted on the NRSD website, articulates the following goals. Evaluate our policies and procedures. Change those institutional practices that create different outcomes for different racial and minority groups. And there is a asterisk there suggesting that if we recommit, we replace the word minority with marginalized. Educate ourselves about racial justice and active anti-racism. Act to create systems and supports to achieve and sustain racial equity through proactive and preventative measures. Ensure that voices, concerns, and fears in our community are heard and addressed. Join with the superintendent and the leadership team and seek out resources that specialize in active anti-racism education to help NRSD evaluate our systems and train us to be better advocates for our students of color and other minorities, and to develop the skills necessary to engage our students and members of our school community in conversations about racial equity and our duty as citizens to stand together for human rights. In addition, on the June 17th, 2020, the school committee adopted the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Board of Directors Anti-Racism Resolution, which includes these specific actions. It is the responsibility that every district provide to all district staff, including school committee members, professional development on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Every district will commit to recruiting and retaining a diverse and culturally responsive teaching workforce. Every district will examine their policies for institutional and systemic racialized practices and implement change with sustainable policies that are evidence-based. Every district will incorporate into their curriculum the history of racial oppression, works by Black authors, and works from diverse perspectives. We as school district leaders can no longer remain silent to the issues of racism and hate that continue to plague our public and private institutions. And that NRSD and all the school districts in the Commonwealth must guarantee that racist practices are eradicated and diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded and practiced for our students, families, faculty, and staff. They continue with the following requests for the school committee. In recognition that over a year has passed and several new members have joined the school committee since the creation of these commitments, and that the school committee, as the leader of the district, informs the goals and vision of the superintendent and oversees the policies and budget that frame the scope of the day-to-day experiences and opportunities of staff, students, and families. The DRJ advisory requests that the full school committee review the commitments in the above mentioned statement and consider the following. Publicly recommit to the statement of responsibility and the anti-racism resolution with the edits suggested above as a reminder to the district and community at large that equity for all is at the heart of the district's mission and vision. Amend the DRJ name to represent diversity, equity, awareness, and racial justice. provide the example of participating in professional development around diversity, equity, belonging, and racial justice that is provided by experts in the field and that is aligned and can further inform the professional development of the district staff. Reflect on and share with DJ essential questions that the school committee and each subcommittee would like to have answered, and share with DJ progress towards these commitments and ways we might be able to provide insights, resources, and help related to equity and racial justice for the school committee. This letter also contains some specific requests for the subcommittees. I won't read them here, but I will send them to the subcommittee chairs so that they have those for their meetings. And the letter concludes with Dear Jay, next steps. For its part, the Dear Jay Advisory has begun its own process of building out equitable meeting and communication structures and processes, establishing norms, collecting resources, and identifying goals and action steps that align with the voices of those with lived experience and with the established field of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. In order to incorporate your input, request a response at the December 15th school committee meeting so that we can outline potential next steps for ways we can support the school committee in embedding diversity, equity, awareness, and belonging into its 3 areas of impact. Support subcommittees in embedding equitable practices, policies, resources, and learnings into their work. Support the integration and alignment of NRSC's Statement of Responsibility for Racial Justice and Anti-Racism Resolution into our school improvement plans and our district improvement plan. And to support the school committee and its one employee, the superintendent, in keeping equity for all at the center of its strategic planning process. We envision this work as an ongoing partnership with the school committee, the district, and the community, and expect to adapt and evolve as we move together towards our vision of a community where all members belong and thrive. Thank you for your recognition of the centrality of this work to achieving our mission of educating all students to their fullest potential in a safe and caring environment to become critical, creative, reflective thinkers and positive contributors to the global community. We are excited to partner with you, the district, and the community as we move forward on this complex and deeply human journey. Sincerely, the Dear Jay Advisory Committee. And I think they have some requests for future agendas, but should I save that for future agendas?
So when we get to that, bring that back up and we can kind of have maybe just a blanket place marker and then we can come up with what that will look like later.
Okay.
Thank you so much for reading that, Sharon. Well done.
Story time is over.
Yes, that was a really important story. So thank you for that. We'll move over to our CPAC advisory. Brett.
No report.
Thank you, sir. All right, so here we are. Items agenda. Yeah, Mary.
So we skipped over Regional Agreement Amendment Advisory Committee.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And it's literally, it's the most important one. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. No, especially to hear the Dear Jay, that was really amazing.
Yeah.
It's just really amazing. So first of all, I want to thank Sharon and I want to thank Steve, sincerely thank Sharon and Steve for volunteering from the school committee to be part of the Regional Agreement Amendment Advisory Committee. So we're covered. And not only that, but we have a Bolton community representative in Lorraine Ramasco, who is a former member of the committee and was in fact chairperson. So at this point we have 7 members. Still would love to have 2 more from Lancaster, still open, and we'll bring them up to speed. I would do private tutoring with them if we can get two more, meet with them. But we have a diversity of experience, a really talented group who don't seem to be put off by the number of documents that I have bestowed upon them, many documents. So we did meet. We're off to a promising start. That was on the 10th. And our next meeting is November 30th, which seems to be a very popular night for meetings. And so it's good news.
Great. Thanks, Mary. So glad and appreciative of all of your work there, and Sharon and Steve too. So I think now we are on to items for next agenda. So perhaps you guys would benefit from me sharing the planning calendar. We are looking at December for our next meeting. This is what is already there. And Mike, can I rely on you to let me know if anybody has their hand raised, or just call on people if they want me to add anything?
Sure.
Anybody have anything they want to add? Sharon, I know you do.
Yeah, I can't figure out how to put my virtual hand up tonight.
I think I'm going to put it on the, I think I'm going to put it on the 15th, if that's okay, because I do know that December 1st is a very, very full night.
So I think the action items that we can, or the things that we can act on right away are putting, publicly recommitting to the resolutions made on June 2020, amending the DRJ advisory name, and pursuing professional development. I think those three are action items that we can act on pretty quickly. And then they have also requested that we consider what our essential questions may be, and ask for ways that they can support us. So I don't know if that all fits into the same meeting, or if that is two different agenda items, but that is what they are looking for from us.
This last one, Sharon, I'm phrasing it as identify things we need from them.
Yes.
Okay. Or we could use help with.
Yes.
Okay, great. And so that subcommittee, so you're going to send the subcommittee piece to the chairs. They will then put that on their next subcommittee agenda, because there are some very specific things there. And then subcommittees, when you come back, perhaps you can share out some of the DEI work that you were doing in your subcommittee according to the guidelines that DRJ built. So more to come on that. Anything else that you guys want on the planning calendar? And Mike, I appreciate your help here. I can't see anyone.
We've got Steve.
Is it too early to talk about school choice? I know I'm not muted anymore. Is it
Yes,
too early?
no, I think, isn't school choice a May conversation? I'm not sure though.
Oh, that would more or less, I don't know. I always thought it was late in the year or early in the next year, because people have to know whether we're going to allow it or not.
I see it here, Steve, on March 9th.
Okay.
So it's covered. Anybody else for December? All right. So if you do think of anything, guys, just, of course, let me know. And now the finale. Would anybody like to give me a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Rich, for that second. And we shall go for the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Shawn?
Yep.
Steve?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And Brett?
Yes.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thanks so much, everyone.